I just built 3 brand new decks for MagicCon Las Vegas. Let's take a look at them. Hey everyone, I'm DJ. This is the Jumbo Commander YouTube channel, and today we're talking about some brand new decks that I built, and I built them specifically for MagicCon Las Vegas. If you're interested in seeing me, playing against me, getting into all the hype, there'll be a link in the description giving you some more information about that event. But what I really want to talk about is what decks did I build, and what is my strategy for putting together a deck that's fun to play at conventions, that's great to bring out at a local game store. What makes these types of decks really versatile and really special? The first deck I want to talk about is Doric, Nature's Warden. Doric, Nature's Warden is 3 and a green for a 3/3 Tiefling Druid. It's got Vigilance, and when Doric, Nature's Warden enters the battlefield, you may search your library for a force card, put it on the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. Whenever Doric attacks, you may pay 1 and a green. If you do, Transformer. So what's the transform side? It's Doric Owlbear Avenger. A 6/6 legendary bird bear with vigilance and trample. When this creature transforms into Doric Owlbear Avenger, other legendary creatures you control get +2/+2 and gain trample until end of turn. At the beginning of your upkeep, transform Doric. So it's going to pump all of my legends, give them like a little bit of a boost. +2/+2 and trample can be pretty good and threatening if we have a big enough battlefield. I also really like that Doric ramps me, because getting the right amount of mana onto the battlefield is going to be important if I'm going to play the coolest, best legends in Commander. Now, what makes this deck special? Well, the fact that it runs so many legendary creatures means that it can do a ton of different things. In fact, I've had crazy win conditions. Like, this is not a Finn the Fangbear deck, but I have killed people with poison damage, had enough death cut creatures, given them +2/+2 and trample, and then suddenly infected people out, and that was a fantastic and satisfying win that I didn't even know was in this deck. This deck is not trying to put +1/+1 counters on things, but when my Vorinclex enables my Runati and my Rishkar to be able to stack a ton of counters everywhere, and my Kadama gives them all trample and ramps me even more, it feels great. And none of these are actually optimized. Like, my Reki would draw better if it was the soul of the deck. Toski draws better in decks that curve out. Are you kidding me? Wilson doesn't even have a background in this thing. But they're all in here, and they're all meshing together, and they all kind of work, and it's really fun and exciting. Doric is perfect for a convention because I have a critical mass of really interesting and diverse creatures. I'm also not racing towards a win condition. I'm ramping to more and more cool legendary plays. The power level of each individual creature is really high, but the deck itself is not overpowered. But that ramp in the command zone is really critical because it lets me stay in games longer. Because that's what I want to do. I want to play long, interesting games with crazy creatures and interesting interactions. This is my Kenrath the Returned King All Politics deck. This deck doesn't do anything unless I consider other people at the table. My card draw, political. I've got things like Fact or Fiction, Hostile Negotiations, Soren's Ransom, Guided Passage, even Allure of the Unknown, Atris, Intuition. My opponents have to interact in order to give me some sort of card draw. Even my ramp, my ramp is things like, I have normal 2 mana ramp because there's quite a few mana restrictions in here, but like Carpet of Flowers, like you have to have islands in order for me to have my mana ramp. Root Weaver Druid, everyone gets some ramp, along with Kineas and Tear of Miletus. We've got Smothering Tithe, like you have to let me get that treasure. Temple Discovery, Pierre's Whim, all of it is super great. I even have political removal, like Council's Judgment, Fractured Identity, Tragic Arrogance, Palace Jailer. The Monarch mechanic is huge. I got Queen Marchesa in here too. I also have ways to give favors to some of my favorite people. The Demonstrate mechanic is really cool. I can also activate the King and give people certain advantage, but also things like Lorne the Third Path, just turning on and giving someone a card. I also have some interesting combat shenanigans in here. I've got things like Flumph and Glunch and Promicon, Shadrick Silverquill being a political piece. I mean, like, honestly, it's just all of my favorite political cards thrown together in a single deck, which makes it so much fun. But actually, this deck makes it fun for everyone, because as soon as I flip over a Fact or Fiction, everyone's going to have something to say about the split. You know, if I'm saying, hey, I have a card for someone, I have a demonstrate, I'm going to let someone get some advantage, everyone's going to be going at each other and talking and opening up those conversations, those backstabs, those bribes, all that fun stuff that makes Commander much more about the people than the decks and the gameplay. This is my final deck right here. I haven't quite finished it up yet. It'll get done though. And it's Black-White Flicker Dungeons. The leader of this is Safana Kalimport Cutthroat. 2 and a black for a 3/2 legendary human rogue with menace. At the beginning of your end step, if you have the initiative, create a treasure token. Create 3 of those tokens instead if you've completed a dungeon. The background I've chosen gives me the black-white color combination. It's Far Traveler. 2 and a white for a legendary background. Commander creatures you own have, at the beginning of your end step, exile up to 1 target tapped creature you control, then return it to the battlefield under its control. That's the flicker effect. And so that's going to synergize with some of the flickers that I want. I was actually inspired by White Plume Adventurer and Seasoned Dungeoneer. Let's take a closer look at these cards because they're really good and they made a huge impact on other formats. White Plume Adventurer is 2 and a white for a 3/3 orc cleric. When White Plume Adventurer enters the battlefield, you take the initiative. At the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, untap a creature you control. If you've completed a dungeon, untap all creatures you control instead. Seasoned Dungeoneer is a little bit more expensive at 4 mana, 3 and a white for a 3/4 human warrior. When Seasoned Dungeoneer enters the battlefield, you take the initiative. Whenever you attack, target attacking cleric, rogue, warrior, or wizard gains protection from creatures until end of turn. It explores. Now, it might benefit us to know a little bit more about what the initiative does. So the first time, you get to search a basic land, and then we're going to go down the left side because it's way more better. Put 2+1/+1 counters on target creature in a deck where you really need to block or get damage through. That's pretty good. Goad target creature. That's fantastic because they're not coming at you. Archives is draw a card, like drawing a card. And then Throne of the Dead 3 is awesome. Reveal the top 10 cards of your library. Put a creature card from among them onto the battlefield with 3+1/+1 counters on it. It gains hexproof until your next turn. These 2 cards were busted in other formats. White Plume Adventurer is banned in Legacy. I've played these in Cube and they're just disgusting. The reason why is that in 1v1, you have a lot more control over the initiative. It's easier to hold on to it and let that advantage build up over time. I do like the initiative and it lets us move through other dungeons as well. I think that's really cool. And in multiplayer, it's not about just always controlling it. I do think that there's a fun political aspect of passing around the initiative and letting lots of people venture through dungeons. So this is another dungeon that encourages attacks with the initiative and dungeon crawling and the monarch and goad and all that other stuff. But hopefully I'll actually be able to keep the initiative and keep running through dungeons pretty quickly because I have creatures that take the initiative, that take the monarch, that take these effects back again as they enter the battlefield. And I have tons of ways to blink them so I can just immediately steal things back. I'm going to reanimate it. So if you kill my creature, I get it back again and suddenly I have that card advantage of the dungeon, of the monarch, of the initiative, of all those things. And a lot of times people don't know how to play with them. It's attacking from a different angle and forcing some decks to attack. I actually like that. I feel like in my meta, a lot of people have moved away from creature-based strategies. They're all spells and really powerful combos. And I want to reward someone that plays a 2-drop. Play a 2-drop, we'll share the initiative back and forth. We both get an advantage. I also really like changing the dynamic. Like people are used to playing a certain deck and playing with a certain play group. And so they have the expectations of a deck. It can make a deck stale. And so if they come to a commander table and suddenly everything's just a little bit different because there's the monarch, there's the initiative, there's dungeons, there's all this stuff, they have to play their deck in a different way. And a lot of times they have way more fun. That's at the core of Commander, is bringing something interesting together and connecting with the other person across the table. And I think that all of these decks have a different way of connecting with other players. Thanks for joining me. This episode is brought to you by Wizards of the Coast. I'm a Magic the Gathering ambassador, and I've got a link in the description that'll give you all sorts of information about MagicCon Las Vegas. I will be there. I will bring these decks. I'll be bringing a lot of Magic decks, and I'll be playing the entire weekend long with all sorts of fans. And it's not just me. There's tons of creators there, tons of excitement. It's a fantastic time. So if you've ever wanted to go, now's the time to click on the link in that description and learn more about MagicCon Las Vegas. This has been DJ on the Jumbo Commander YouTube channel. Thank you so much to everyone, and I hope to see you guys at MagicCon Las Vegas. Bye-bye, everyone.